Welcome back to Talking Risk. It's a podcast by a couple of entrepreneurs for what we hope is a lot of entrepreneurs out there. It's a podcast where Ricky and I, my co-host, have every week a business founder, owner, C-level executive, or consultant to business to tell us about their experiences, challenges, victories, losses, all in the pursuit of achieving their legacies. And what we found, and it's a good thing because that was our intent, what we found is that this really does expand our business knowledge and education. It expands our listeners' education into entrepreneurialism, and hopefully it'll inspire more people to keep on achieving their legacy, or what we would love is to become an entrepreneur if you're not one yet, so that you can set out achieving your legacy. My name's Eric Reese. I'm a CPA and a lawyer. Not bragging, but I own a law firm, Aspen Legal. You can find that on the net at aspenlawteam.com. My co-host is Ricky Hall.
Hi, I'm Ricky. I'm the founder of Nutrition HQ and Nutrition HQ Franchising. You can find me online at nhq.rocks, R-O-C-K-S.
And the best part of our program today is our guest, Wade. Wade?
Hey, I'm Wade Covington with Century 21 Prestige of the Lake. You can find me at www.c21athelake.com.
And we'll talk to Wade about all sorts of good stuff, including a very interesting past to and a very interesting path to how he got to where he is today. Wade happens to be my real estate guy at the lake. We remain on location at the Lake of the Ozarks, which I contend is one of, if not the most unique economies in the United States currently for several reasons. We're in one of the houses that we own. You can find the houses that we own at lozvacations.com, lozvacations.com. And if you've not come to the lake, either for a while or, in Ricky's case, a long while. You were 6 years old since you were last here.
Something like that.
So that was 10 years ago. Yep. So if you haven't been, you ought to come. It is probably the closest thing to a Destin feel. That's how I feel when I'm down here. It's like Destin-like, but it's right in the middle of Missouri.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
We just got back from Florida, and that was something that I told people. It's not hard to come back to the lake from vacation.
Yeah, absolutely, because it still feels a bit that you're on vacation when you're here, for sure. Although every time I come, my wife seems to find a honey-do list about as long as my leg. So, I can sit on the deck here with a cigar and a scotch, and she goes, well, what are we doing? And it's like, you're looking at it. And she goes, no, we got other plans. But before we start talking to Wade about his experience, we have a segment that we like to call Hot Topics.
Hot Topics.
That's the first time that Ricky actually got that button. Oh, the second time that Ricky actually got that button correct. And Hot Topics is something that Ricky and I have talked about over the past week regarding business, regarding negotiation, regarding leadership, etc. And today's hot topic is the automation, the continued quest for automating what people are doing, particularly in sales, right? And so I'll give you an example, something that we talked about. When I started my own law firm on March 16th, of course, I went on LinkedIn and I said, hey, I've started my own law firm, right? A personal message. And I got about 1,200 messages from my LinkedIn connections, all the same. It says, congratulations on your move, and it is all BS, right? Because they were all exactly the same. And I don't know how you respond to automated messages, but I was a little pissed off that someone couldn't actually sit at their computer and just at least try to write me a personalized message.
Yeah, it's funny. LinkedIn's bad about that.
Right. And so on a couple of those, I wrote back, it appears that we have some of the same connections, which I know is one of these stupid automated messages that LinkedIn provides. And I wonder whether people are doing themselves a service by using that sort of automation, particularly in sales?
Sales is tough because those guys just want to hustle.
Yeah.
So a little automation probably keeps them a little hungrier.
Yeah.
That way they don't like to be pulled down in the weeds.
Yeah.
But it ends up just falling in the background, and nobody pays attention to it because you know that it's not authentic.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
You see the 27 messages, you read the first 3 and move on.
Yeah. So we had, we've had a couple of marketing experts on. Is this our 16th episode?
We're getting up there.
We're getting up there. But we've had a couple of marketing experts on, and I go back to Tim Burt, for example, when he said it takes X number of touches, right? And the number of touches, according to data, right? He wasn't making this up, has really gone up, right? Yes. It used to be, and again, we got to be careful because it depends upon the industry. My close rate, if I talk to a prospective client, is about 90%.
Right.
And it's one touch, all right? And that's not bragging. That's just because I'm in a different industry. And I spend a freaking hour with them, okay? So that may be the equivalent of 16 touches by the time we're done with that hour-long conversation. But I don't know if that really counts as a touch. That fake, and I call it fake, automated message. I just got one yesterday on Facebook, right? And it was, hi, Mr. Reese, from a guy who's selling cryptocurrency, okay? Hi, Mr. Reese, you look like a guy who's interested in investing money, blah, blah, blah. And I looked him up, right? And I bet he sent that 1,000 times over yesterday, trying to sell cryptocurrency. Number one, I don't buy anything called Dogecoin, all right, or any other cryptocurrency. And I feel sad for you if you do. Oh, well, it's worth so much money. Until it isn't.
401k9 plan.
401k9 plan, which I love. I sent you that video on Dogecoin. Put everything in Dogecoin. Yeah. But the thing is that all I had to do was look him up. It's like, dude, if you want to reach out to me, reach out to me. But this is not the way to do it, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the cool thing is I think there's a separation now because AI is getting involved, and it's much different than these responses you're getting on LinkedIn.
Sure.
AI is actually having a conversation, and people don't know they're having a conversation with AI.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They will secure appointments for you, and then take that conversation, send it to. It's actually really amazing, getting better and better.
And that's a good point.
Instagram's got a few programs that they're testing right now that's going to be pretty powerful.
So years ago, well, not that long ago, before it was artificial intelligence doing this stuff, it was offshored, right?
Right.
And I represented a guy, didn't care for him all that much, but he had prisoners in the UK that he employed, all right? He had a contract with the prison system, and he employed them, and it was all responses, right? But they were taught how to send these automatic responses, but how to personalize them, right? And because they were in prison, his cost of labor was like nothing, right? $2 an hour or something like that. And I thought that was fairly novel, right? Mm-hmm. Until I guess the customer finds out that they're talking to someone in prison.
Indonesia.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, worse. Yeah. Right? Nothing wrong with Indonesians, I'm sure.
No, not at all.
But, and they tried that on the telephone too, right? The extended car warranty guys, like, who am I talking to? Oh, this is George. It's like, oh, George, where are you? Oh,
Texas.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Always the simple name. Lucy, George, Jim.
So I'm on my weather app, right? And it's like, oh, really? What's the weather like in Cincinnati? Very cold. It's like, no, it's 90.
Back
George.
on automation and stuff like that, and I've talked about this before, but at our store levels, once the customers purchase from the very first time, we send that handwritten thank you card.
Sure.
Because nobody's doing it.
Yeah.
And it's powerful.
Personal touch.
Yep.
Yeah. And it still means a lot. I mean, maybe it doesn't mean a lot to everybody. It still means a lot to me.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
And that's the thing too, because we try to put something in there. So like if it's a lady and she's going to her son's soccer game, and I'm like, hey, Sherry, thanks for stopping in today. Let us know what you think of your Rule 1.
Yeah.
Hope Joe wins his soccer game.
Yeah. So
powerful.
Yeah. So as you know, because you've been to my office a bunch, right? There was one guy, and he owns Vet Fran. He ex-Marine. And he sells franchises to people who are getting out of the service, right? And he sent me a coffee cup with a $2 bill in it. And guess what?
Still sitting.
That is proudly featured in my office, right? It matters, right? And so every day, maybe subconsciously, but every day, I'm thinking about him.
Absolutely.
Right.
Even simpler, when I send an email to a potential client that maybe on the first touch, like I've heard from them, I always put good morning or good afternoon, because otherwise they automatically see real estate and they just move on. But if you put good morning, good afternoon, it's personal, and they're like, somebody's actually typing this.
And I get it. And your dog is humping my left foot again. That's a day in a row. I don't know what it's on my left foot.
What is this podcast rated?
Well,
explicit.
It was PG until now, right?
He's running the table. He's over here now.
But I do get it, right? I mean, I try to commoditize as much as I can my practice, because there's only so many hours in the day, right? There's a lot of leads that typically you have to go through to find that person who's, in Wade's case, who's going to buy a piece of real estate. In my case, going to buy some legal services. And in your case, buy supplements or other products that you sell. I do get it, but we can do it too much, and where it seems to me to be counterproductive. Now, that's not saying, we shouldn't gather the data and we shouldn't use the data. I'm talking about the approaches. How are those touches made?
Yeah, I agree. I just think there is space for automation, but don't lose the personal touch. Yeah,
one of the businesses that I helped co-found down in Orlando's the Franchise Brokers Association, and it is, and you're fully familiar with this, Ricky. Mm-hmm. It is fairly standard in franchising that you need to talk to 100 leads to sell one. Right. And so what they're trying to do down there is help automate the vetting process, right? A little bit of what Wade's saying, add some personal, responses, which can be AI. You don't know that you're talking to a machine or whatever, but go through a few steps. And part of the vetting is to see if that person is going to follow directions. Right?
Yep.
Your next step would be submit your financials to us so we can see what type of business might be appropriate from you from an economic perspective. And if they don't, right, after another follow-up, get rid of them, right? Because we talked about vetting and how important that is, right? If it takes 16 touches to sell something, don't do the 17th touch.
Right.
Because if they're not buyers, they're not buyers. Move on. Because there's a buyer waiting out there for you, and you're wasting your time with this person. If Wade wants to send me a new home every day for 900 days, right, but I'm not a buyer, I'll still look at the home because I'm bored, right? It's better than looking at Facebook, right? But at the same time, vet them and move on.
Yeah.
But automation it's only going to get worse, I think. And I would suggest, at least if you're trying to sell me something, don't send me it appears that we have many of the same connections.
Well, I think March 16th of next year, you'll get that happy work anniversary.
Correct. Yeah.
I think also you just need to know what the right application is.
Yeah.
I mean, if the application is engaging with clients in a way that works and converts, great.
Yes.
But if it's in a way like what you were getting, that's useless because it just falls on deaf ears.
Yep. I agree. All right. Okay. So, speaking about an automated guy, we're going to really start, Wade, with your background. And I know everybody's got a varied and interesting background. I mean, I wanted to be the president of the United States. I wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to be a bunch of stuff that I never ended up being. Oddly enough, it was when I watched Hillary debate Donald Trump that I thought, I'll be damned. I could have been the president of the United States. I definitely would have outqualified either of those two Goombas. But so take us back, Wade. And by back, I mean, where'd you grow up? And just take us through the succession of events that led you to the Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, I think other people's stories are interesting because you never heard it before.
Right.
And they're always different.
Yep.
So I grew up in central Illinois. I usually tell people it's a small town outside Champaign-Urbana.
Okay.
Usually, I was in the Marine Corps for 20 years. So when I'd say I was from Illinois, everybody said, "Oh, Chicago. I've been there."
Yep.
You get that all the time. No, I came from a small farm town called Homer. And it was
Homer. Now that is interesting. I've never seen Homer.
I don't know.
You got a business in Quincy. Is Quincy by Homer?
Quincy's pretty close. I think
that's where I was born.
Interesting. Okay, keep going.
So it's a small farm town, 1,300 people, very small school. My father worked in a GM foundry for 30 years.
Okay.
My mother was as I grew up, she was in banking. Worked for several banks.
Okay.
And my grandfather retired from the same foundry my father worked at.
Wow.
And all my uncles also retired from that same foundry.
Is that foundry still there or no?
It is not. Sadly enough, that foundry and also I think it was Chanute Air Force Base.
That's right. Yeah, that's where that went to AIT there.
Okay. Well, they shut Chanute down, and then years later they shut the GM foundry down. And
that was all bad for Homer, for sure.
Well, Homer, we lived kind of removed from that area.
Okay.
And this happened right when I left for the Marine Corps, too.
Okay.
But it was devastating to the local population. And
sure.
It was really, crime went up. I mean, it had a really bad effect on that.
What year did you go into the Marines?
1992.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
But my father was coming up on retirement. He was going to retire in 1993.
Okay.
And basically, when I was a junior, he had to talk with me. Mom and Dad had to talk. Hey, we're retiring. We're moving to Florida. And, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. So,
wow. We're ditching you.
Yeah. And I didn't have great grades. I didn't have good grades. Let me be honest.
So you're a senior in high school at this point?
Well, I was either going into my senior year. It was a year before I graduated from high school.
Right.
Did your mom and dad have this conversation with you?
Yeah. They said, "Hey, we're going to Florida."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, what about me?" He's like, "I'd join the Marines if I were you."
Well, that's kind of the funny thing about it, because I didn't expect anything.
Sure.
I didn't feel like I was entitled to anything from my parents.
Yeah.
I didn't say, "Well, what about me? Are you going to send me to college?" I just didn't have that kind of personality.
Wade says, "Great. Tampa, Orlando, Miami, where are we going?" He goes,
not so fast.
There might have been a little miscommunication going on.
I had always talked about joining the Marine Corps with my friends, and my brother was in the Marine Corps, and I had a lot of respect for that.
Okay.
The Marines always seemed to be the tougher choice.
Tough guys, yeah.
Right? You weren't just a face in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing against any of the services, obviously. We don't have to go through that gambit.
Right.
But for me, it was probably, what do I have to prove?
Yeah.
And, it looked like a good challenge. So that's kind of why it was in my head from the moment my brother was in until this point of time where mom and dad have planned to move to Florida.
Yeah. And there seems to be with the Marines, and maybe I did not serve, and we've talked about this often. It's a great choice, quite frankly. Still
an alternative,
still is, and but there seems to be something with the Marine Corps that once you get out, there's more of a fraternity, brotherhood with Marines than there seems to be with the other folks.
Well, once a Marine, always Marines.
Well, yeah.
Right? There's a branding there, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, there really is.
Yeah.
And the other services have really tried. And I have always told people that I think that where the Marine Corps went right and it's not all marketing, obviously. I mean, you go through tough times with people and you come together. That's just kind of how it is.
Right.
But I've always told people where the Marine Corps went right is they tell you, hey, we have this thing.
Yeah.
We're not sure you could accomplish this.
Right.
But if you want to try, then come on over and see if you can do it.
Yeah, of course.
And that gets that A-type personality, that go-getter to come out and give it a shot. Whereas the other services typically, you know, they say, you want to go to college?
Yeah.
You're throwing money at it and stuff like that. But it's all about the challenge with the Marine Corps.
Yeah. As soon as the Marines came up with Semper Fi, well, who had anything else? The Air Force is like, how you doing? It's like, nah, not quite.
Yeah, so I was just drawn to that, and some of my friends had planned on joining the Marine Corps, and that all fell apart. So there I was,
the only guy.
Yeah, I was the only one left. But so
same thing happened here. I had 4 or 5 of us were going to join the Air Force, and I was the only one.
You look around, right? You're like, I don't know any of these.
It's like that scene in the Animal House. Come on, let's go! And you go out there, you're the only guy out there.
I had a bumper sticker on my desk in my room, and it said 1-800-Marines. And the way I remember it, it's probably made up in my head, but the way I remember it is when Dad let me know what was going on, you know, I looked down, I was like, well, I picked up the phone and dialed, and Gunnery Sergeant De La Rosa answered, and he was at the house the next week.
Wow. Yeah, you know, and still, I mean, if I'm behind somebody on the road, right, and they've got that Marine Corps sticker on the window or whatever, the first thing I'm thinking of, probably a tough dude inside of there. You know, even if he worked on computers the whole time he was with the Marine Corps, it's like, that's a tough dude.
Still went through that boot camp. Where did you do boot camp?
San Diego.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, well, you know, you have your drawbacks. You know, everybody knows if you go to South Carolina that you've got the swamps, right? Yeah. Well, I tell people in San Diego, you lay in your rack in boot camp and you watch planes take off every night, you know, and that's just grueling watching these people leave.
Huge base down there. I've driven from L.A. to San Diego, and it's right up above San Diego that you start getting into these bases, right? I can't remember.
Pendleton, and then you have all the Navy bases right on the water. Huge,
yeah. All right, so you went from boot camp to where?
So I went to boot camp, and then I was transferred. We did combat training back then. I don't know if they're still doing that, but we called it MCT. Do some combat training. And then you go to your MOS school. So I was assigned to Del Mar, California, for my administrative school is what it was. It was an admin school.
That's also Southern California.
Yeah. Actually, a really nice area. I think AAVs was out there. They were training out there.
Wow.
There was a couple other MOSs out there. But at the time, you know, it was cool because in 1992 and 1993, you were allowed to drink alcohol if you were in the military at 18.
Huh. Wild.
So we could go down to the club in Del Mar and you could drink and you didn't have any problems. I know that seems like a minuscule thing, but it's something that people...
it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, when I was in Minot, North Dakota, it was 18 on the base because soldiers were going up to Canada where they could drink at 18. So they lowered the drinking age on the military base because there were so many DUIs.
Interesting. Yeah. When I went to school, Arizona was 18, right? So I could... like I was drinking already, but you could drink legally.
You can drink like an adult.
Right. And it was only until...
Interesting.
Who did that? Was it Ronald Reagan? Somebody threatened to withhold federal funds.
Highway funds, I think.
Yeah, highway funds. And then everybody went to 21, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because Iowa was 18 for many years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the states had to go through and approve it in order to get their federal funds for the interstates.
Right. Okay, so you're still in Southern California, a long way from the Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, that was a really, really cool experience. And it's, I'm sure a lot of people from here can relate from the lake and around St. Louis area and people listening because, you know, leaving Homer and being dumped in California with no supervision, it was a strange thing because you really have to feel your way through. You know, there's strip bars out there, stuff you've never seen, never experienced that some of the people that you're hanging out with know all about, you know.
Strip bars, what is that? Strip furniture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Southern California, especially Oceanside, was very well known for those places. They've cleaned it up since then, but yeah.
Okay.
And of course, my brother was in the Marine Corps, and he was in Oceanside, so he's giving me, hey, go to
the map.
Spanky's Pizza, out in Oceanside, which was phenomenal, and so exploring this new experience was very interesting.
Right.
But while I was in admin school, might as well talk about faults just as much as we talk about successes, because I think this probably shaped me during my time in the Marine Corps more than anything that I experienced, and that was I got in a fight. I got in a lot of fights, but I happened to get in a fight where I got in trouble while I was at admin school, and I was in a leadership position at the time. I was a squad leader, and had somebody that was not conforming to what we needed to do when we were in formation and other things.
Right.
But so we got in a fight, and we both got what's called NJP, Article 15. You probably know it, but in the Marine Corps we call it NJP.
Now, why do you point to Ricky and we say, I'm sure Ricky's
being in the military
aware
in Article 15, yeah.
No, just troublemaker. That's why we pointed to you.
Yeah, in the Air Force and Army, they call it Article 15. I don't know why the Marine Corps, we always have to be different. We call it non-judicial punishment, NJP.
Okay.
So, got in a lot of trouble, and they took money away. We put us on restriction, which means you can't leave the barracks, and it's a permanent strike on your record.
So, oh my gosh, permanent strike!
That's so a big deal. Every time you show up to a unit and they look through your record, they see that you've been charged with aggravated assault.
Wow!
And they think they've got a problem in their hands, and I hadn't even started yet.
Right.
I haven't even got going.
Right.
Wow. So very disheartening. The situation that I learned from was he wasn't, conforming. We ended up which is the only way I knew to get somebody to do what they're supposed to do instead of using communication or other measures. And so that from then on, that really shaped my leadership style, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
That's good for you to take it that way, but you're right. Every time you go to a new base, they go through your file and they judge.
Yeah, and I hadn't even been to my first duty station yet.
Wow.
Yeah.
So probably the next thing that shaped my leadership style for the next 19 years was when I showed up at my first duty station, and they looked through my record and found this assault charge. And by the way, I was supposed to be stationed at this awesome place in California, and when I got in trouble, they canceled those orders, sent me to an infantry battalion in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
So how much punishment do you need before you go, hey, I got it, okay?
That is the flaw with the military.
I understand.
They'll hang you.
Well, and the funny thing, I'm not one of those people that say everything happens for a reason. It's not something, a way I feel. But it was the best thing that happened to me, because when I sat down in front of Gunnery Sergeant Warwick and Chief Warrant Officer Day at my first duty station, and they saw that, and they look up at me and go, what's this all about? So I explained the situation, and they didn't ask more questions. They said, well, you start on a clean slate here, so we're going to pretend it's not even there.
Wow. Good. Yeah.
Yep.
So that was probably the second thing that had the largest impact on me.
So where was this physically? What state were you
2nd
in?
Battalion, 8th Marine, 2nd Marine Division, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina. Well, that's not horrible, is it?
What's that?
It's not horrible, is it?
No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great, yeah.
And this is a huge base, too.
You're an infantry battalion, aside from an airfield up in California. But
right.
Are Marine bases only huge? I mean, do the Marines have any small bases? Or, in stateside, I'm talking.
We've got a couple, logistics bases and training bases that are small. I think Albany, that's kind of a small base. We've got a couple. And a lot of the lateral MOSs that work through the other services, like dog training and MPs and motor T. We do those on bigger Army or Air Force bases, like Fort Leonard Wood, for example. We've got a Marine detachment there.
That's the other thing. It's like when I was a kid, I grew up right outside an Air Force base, Scott Air Force Base, and everyone was Air Force. And now it's nothing for someone to live in the neighborhood and they're an officer in the Marine Corps, but they're stationed in an Air Force base.
Right. Yeah. The services cross each other all the time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Especially now. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were in the Marine Corps for 20 years. Does that mean pension? Does that mean you get a Marine pension from the Marine Corps?
Yes, I retired in 2012
nice.
with, a little over 20 years.
Yeah.
And yes, I have retirement.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So after the Marine Corps, then where did you go? Where were you, first of all, when you got out of the Marine Corps? And what made you decide to go wherever you went?
So I'd just gotten back from a deployment from the Red Sea. And I knew that I wanted to retire around 2012. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to get as close back to the Midwest as possible. Mm-hmm. And Illinois specifically. And we have a Marine detachment on Fort Leonard Wood. It's all training, MPs, Motor T, and there was an adjutant position there. And I knew some people because I'd been an instructor and taught all kinds of different stuff in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And so the monitor released me to go to Fort Leonard Wood.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Do you hear that?
Oh, what is that?
I don't know. We'll use our software and get rid of it.
I don't think it'll pick it up.
Yeah. All right. So that's about the third time that we've heard somebody got out of the military, but that's what they were trained to do. So now you're working, I assume, in a civilian role, but back for the military, essentially. Is that right?
No.
Oh.
I was active duty. I was a master sergeant at Fort Leonard Wood for the detachment. I was the adjutant for that detachment, for almost 4 years before I retired. So I had retired from Fort Leonard Wood, had a house out in the Iberia area. Okay. With 23 acres and with a management degree, business degree.
So now you're close to the Lake of the Ozarks. That's what, an hour away or so?
That was about 40 minutes.
Yeah. Is that how you first became used to or acquainted with the lake?
Our house was, in a way, you could get to St. Robert, Waynesville in 30 minutes, or you could get to the lake in 40 minutes. Oh. So which one would you choose?
Yeah, right. Probably the lake.
Yeah, we were coming here so often, the shopping, the restaurants, and so it was starting to open our eyes like, I don't even know why we go anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely, it's only gotten better with regard to groceries and medical now, et cetera, at the lake. All right, so eventually you said, I'm really, really, really done with the military. So what was your next gig after that?
I took about 4 months off and grew a beard.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can't imagine you with the beard.
Yeah, it didn't last long. Something I found with retirement, if you don't have something to do, you start drinking a lot and you go, okay, well, I think it's about time to get to work. Yeah. So one day I got up, I shaved, put on a suit and started doing interviews. I had a business management degree. What I really wanted was a management position, managing people, dynamic environment, a lot like what I was doing in the Marine Corps. I enjoy that. It fits my personality when things are going wild and you got to think quick and move quick. So I was having a real tough time finding that in that area, obviously.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Not much going on.
No. Yep. But I did have a buddy. He called me. He was working for a commercial electric company and they needed a laborer. So I did that for a while. We pulled copper and, dug duck banks.
Wow.
Dug ditches, whatever. And then Lowe's had a position for an assistant store manager open in St. Robert, and I applied and got that job. So.
Okay. Right. So now you're in management.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a big company.
Corporate gig, yes.
Yeah. And there's upward mobility there, I assume.
A lot of growth within, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
So how long were you with Lowe's?
I think about 3 years.
Okay. All right. And, I've been told, and I've not seen the data, but I've been told that retired military make some of the best franchisees, and I assume they make great employees as well because they're used to following that system. They're used to following those rules, even if those rules don't always make sense, right? You're used to plugging in and saying, I'm going to follow this procedure or whatever.
It's probably easier to identify one of those personalities lining up 10 military members than just 10 civilians, right? Because your odds are going to be better because they're going to be, it's that type of personality that fits in the military and was successful in the military. So you're absolutely right. It's probably the case, I'm sure. Yeah.
So Lowe's is treating you probably better than digging trenches. Fits your personality style. What is your spouse doing during this time?
So my wife, Jessica, she was a massage therapist at the time, and she had a successful business going as well.
So she was an entrepreneur before you were an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
Okay. So, still, you're a long way in my mind, being a Lowe's assistant manager to really taking control. And anytime you're in a sales position, I think you've taken control, over your destiny.
Oh, absolutely. Depending,
of course, if you're still an employee for some schmuck, which I've been, even though I've been in a sales position. But you're an assistant manager at Lowe's. Things seem like they're going well, right? My guess is it ain't great, but it's not horrible, and it's better than digging trenches. So how do you go from that to what you're doing now?
Well, yes, Lowe's was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Very dynamic environment with the employees, the customers, problems coming at you, people complaining.
Yeah.
And also all the feel good stuff as well, helping customers, all that stuff was great. And it was exactly what I was looking for. What I wasn't looking for was to continue getting up at 4 a.m. And one of the things that I did before I retired from the Marine Corps, Jessica and I had planned financially for 10 years that I was going to retire at 20 years, just in case that happened. So we wanted to make sure our cars are paid off. We didn't have any credit card bills. So financially, we had no problem walking away from the Marine Corps.
Right.
And financially, I didn't necessarily need a job.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well planning. And
yeah.
I mean, that's good. That's good on your part.
Yeah. Sure.
Right. Because it's easy. Anybody that works for the government, the check's going to be there.
Right.
And if you let yourself slip into, 2 $600 car payments and high credit card bills, and you're living above your means, you're always going to have to sign that contract, whether you're active duty or just a GS. And I had seen that, and I didn't want that for me. I wanted to be able to be free if I needed to. So we worked hard at making sure we were financially capable of surviving without any income.
That's great.
And we've talked about that. Don't let your lifestyle continue to keep pace with your paycheck. Right. Let your paycheck outpace your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
So to answer your question, I really, really enjoyed the job itself and the people, but getting up at 4 a.m. and going home at 11 o'clock at night, I could have stayed in the Marine Corps and done that and got paid more than what I was getting paid there.
And not wear a stupid vest.
Yeah. But so what I decided to do was I thought, well, I'll leave Lowe's, I'll get my master's degree. And what I'll do is I'll teach. So my initial plan was to go teach at a college somewhere with a master's degree. And, that really, that was really attractive to me. But, so I resigned my position, and about the day I resigned my position, I got a phone call from Century 21, the broker. It seems that I had this guy, on Fort Leonard Wood. He would call me and he'd have wounded vets and that needed employment.
Right.
So he'd call me and say, "Hey, Wade, would you mind interviewing this veteran and seeing if maybe you can use him?" So I'd say, "Yeah, send him over."
Sure.
And this guy, we had a relationship, and I called him and told him that I was leaving to get my master's degree, and he knew the broker at Century 21. So he told her, "Hey, I know this guy Wade Covington. He's got a business degree. He's a great guy," or whatever he said.
Yeah.
And that's why she called me.
Interesting. Yeah. Isn't it funny how, and we've often talked about this, how you turn out in a particular profession, or you turn out with the person that you're with, all because of, it seems like happenstance, right? It's just because you turned left and you were really thinking about turning right. And in this case, it was the fact that you had a network and this person called you, where she could have gotten busy or what have you, but she made the call. So what was it about her presentation of Century 21 or real estate or what have you that made you say, I'm not going to teach. I'm going to sell real estate?
And just real quick, just go back a minute.
Yeah.
Relationships.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everybody you're talking to in your business circle,
right?
Everybody you're talking to is a potential lead to something better.
Correct.
It doesn't mean you should always go for that green grass, but they're always a potential lead to something better. And in how you communicate with them and treat them and help them, assist them, however you can, you are building human equity that might just pay off in the end.
That's a good term, human equity. That's a good point.
Yeah, but we've talked about this. It's like, I don't sell to customers. I sell to referral sources, right? And so the more referral sources I have, the more ultimate customers or clients I'm going to have. So we've talked about talking to everybody. We were with the Apex boys a little while back. Apex Physical Therapy is the largest franchise of physical therapy places in the country. And these guys do pretty well. Let's just leave it at that, right? But you'll see these guys out there talking to everybody, right? They're talking to the assistant manager of the QT, to the person who's sweeping up the restaurant. They're talking to everybody because the broader they can expand their network, the more they're blessed by it. For sure.
Remember, every client that you successfully help, and they've got 2 brothers, a sister, a grandmother, a mom, and you're expanding that sphere of influence.
Sure.
It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which just means that your lead sources are coming in faster and faster.
But go ahead, Ricky. I'm sorry.
I saw a guy do this one time. I was at a franchise convention. He was a franchisee. And we're probably in a break, and we go in and we use the restroom. And there's a guy in there cleaning and wiping down the counters, and he did his business, washed his hand, and then went over and put his hand on the guy's back, and he goes, "Thank you so much for doing this for us."
Wow.
I'm like, that's powerful.
Yeah. Did he wash his hands first?
Yes, he did. Back then, he didn't have to.
I thought that was going to be some sort of a joke of the water's cold, pipes are rusty, right? The ocean is flowing out today.
But
this is a switch. This is a big switch to go from everything that you've learned to selling real estate, or is it a switch?
Well, in some regards it is, but it's a whole new environment. It doesn't mean that, your personality traits don't come in and add into that. However, at Lowe's is kind of a sales environment. I mean, you are, if you're over in Inside Lawn and Garden, somebody's looking for a weed eater.
Yeah.
I mean, you want that high profit margin for the store, especially if you're salary, because you're going to get a bonus. I'm not saying you push a product you didn't want to, but I'm just saying that every department there, they are in sales. I mean, they want you to buy it at Lowe's. They don't want you to go to Home Depot.
Sure.
Right.
So I learned some things there about sales because I'd been in the military that I didn't know.
Right.
There was good information that helped me.
But
however,
no formal sales training at this point.
No formal sales training. But yes, the broker got a hold of me, and I went over and sat down with her. I'd always wanted to be in real estate. I knew that timing was key. If you wanted to go in, very fortunate. I had a military retirement, so I could take that risk. Very fortunate. I was, financially, I was stable.
Sure. Yeah.
So I could take that risk. My wife was working. And when I came home and told Jessica, I think I'm going to go into real estate, she was kind of thrown back. And scared.
Sure.
Very scared.
Wow.
Very different.
Because you went into work that day planning to go get your master's, and you come home and say, "Hey, honey, I'm going to sell real estate."
And I'm not going to get my master's degree.
Right.
So the thought with the master's degree, okay, you're going to go teach at a university or a school or whatever, and you have this in mind, and then you switch it and you go, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to go into real estate. And that's a weird switch. And it would definitely, she was a little bit scared about that.
And she said to Wade what he's heard 100 times before: "Am I going to have a problem with you, Covington?"
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So me and Jessica talked about it, and I'm one of those people that if it didn't work out, I would have got a job at a McDonald's and a Hardee's. And, I'd have made it okay. I wasn't concerned. I'm never scared when I take a risk because I know that I'm capable of coming back.
Sure. All right. So Century 21, I assume there's schooling to learn how to sell real estate. I mean, what's the deal?
Yeah, you have to get a license.
Okay.
So every state's different. You have to take a national test and you have to take a state test. Every state you have to test in. Online school, 48-hour course. It's all, online. You can go to in-person school, but they're not very popular these days. Obviously, it's much easier to do it at home. And how long it takes just depends on the person. I'm not a super smart guy, especially when it takes, academically. So I don't know. It took me maybe a month and a half, and then I had a license in my hand.
You just couldn't get that line down. What do I got to do to get you into this 4-bedroom today?
Yeah, that's right.
That's chapter 1.
And I think the worst thing about real estate licensing is it does not contain hardly anything that you need in the real world that's effective.
No, that's education in general. Go to law school. Right. Okay. So you get into this, you pass your test. Now you're ready to sell. How does Century 21, and I assume that Century 21 does it a lot like other houses. How does that work? I mean, are you an employee? Are you an independent contractor? How does the compensation structure work? All that stuff.
And I consider myself a successful real estate professional. Okay. I just want to backtrack real quick.
Sure.
I failed the test twice. And that just goes to show I honestly believe this. You know, the test does not depict the success of this person in real estate.
Sure.
There's a lot more things go into it than that.
Yeah.
So no, you're an independent contractor.
Okay.
And they hold your license, so you have to have a broker hold your license. You can't just do business.
Why is that? Why does a broker? Because a different level of licensing, I'm sure, but
it is.
What, bonded, insured? What's the deal? What does that add to, say, the consuming public, that a real estate broker holds the license of the agents who are out there selling?
Well, the best I can understand it is, you know, he or she is the principal and you are acting on their behalf. So therefore there's one responsible party for that brokerage, to the state or to, you know, the consumers.
So it's more about the control of the state, not control in a bad way necessarily, but it's the control rather than deal with thousands and thousands and thousands of agents.
Right.
We can deal with, 500 brokers or what have you.
So everything I do as an independent contractor in the regard that you would think in construction or anything else, right?
Okay.
I am doing on behalf of the broker. Okay. Just like the broker is there doing it themselves.
But that comes at a cost, right? I mean, the broker's got to get paid off of the agent's labor, right? I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah. Now there's 15 of them instead of just one of them.
Yeah.
So, when you join a brokerage, you have a contract with that broker, an agency.
Yeah.
And that agency explains how you're going to conduct payment when you close on a house. So the broker will collect that check of, $1,000 and going to give you 40% of it or 60% or whatever you negotiate.
So it's all negotiable with the broker.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, and the better you are, my guess is the better you can negotiate, meaning the more houses you've sold. They go, well, look, this dude's going to make it up on volume.
Right.
So and a lot of companies or a lot of offices have a structured commission. Now that kind of goes to the wayside once you start really producing because like you said, you have more leverage, but usually you come in, you're green and they're like, hey, this is how we do it. 60-40, and then when you sell 20 houses, it goes, 55, 45, whatever.
But there are more mouths to feed than that, right? Because in a typical situation, and I'm asking, not telling, but in a typical situation, you got two agents, right? A seller's agent and a buyer's agent. So how many ways does one commission get split?
One way.
One way?
I mean, that's how I see it. There's two sides to every sale.
Yeah.
The seller side and the buyer side.
But automatically, the commission is 50 to one and 50 to the other. Is that generally how it works?
It is whatever is advertised in the listing service.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So you still got to sell a lot of real estate, right? I mean,
sure.
Because if you sell a $400,000 house, there's only so many ways that you can split it before you go, I better go out and sell another $400,000.
Yeah, the misconception is always, I was at Hy-Vee and heard it at the meat counter last night and I was like, hey, come here, man. I'll tell you how it actually works. But the misconception is always that you're going to be getting paid this much. It's like the broker gets paid and then gives me my cut. So
exactly. Right. Yeah. And for me, that would always rub me the wrong way. It's like, dude,
right.
It's I know that I'm the one that went out and sold this thing, right?
But it's a partnership too.
Yeah,
it really is a partnership, and the broker takes on all the liability. The broker takes on, whether you have a brick and mortar, that building, the maintenance, all that stuff. So, there's a
lot of stuff you don't have to worry about because you got the broker.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
It takes things out of your way, obstacles. That way you can go sling property.
Sure.
Yes. When you start getting to a point, I'm in a very different position than a lot of the real estate professionals, especially here at the lake, being a retired Marine. So, I don't need to go out and be a broker or have my own business. But once you start kind of getting into my production area, you can see why somebody does go out, especially these days when maybe brick and mortar isn't always needed.
I'm gonna tell you something. One of the first things that Wade said to me, he probably doesn't even remember this, and this is going to embarrass him. He was showing Jill and I a house, and he said, "Man, when I was a Marine, everybody believed what I said." He said, "Become a real estate agent, and nobody believes you anymore."
Yeah, I tell my clients that's absolutely true. That's funny you remember that, but I have to put that on the table with my clients because it doesn't matter if they call me and they say, "Hey, I'm interested in this house. Would you show it to me?" They don't know me,
right?
But unfortunately, we do have somewhat of a stigma with some of the consumers in our industry. And I want to change that. Right. I want people to trust me because I feel like I'm a professional, just like a doctor, an attorney.
Sure.
And you need to listen to me because I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So I tell a lot of my clients, especially when I get that feeling that they're just wanting to walk through the house and then, okay, thank you, bye.
Sure.
Which the first time I met, he dealt with several real estate professionals. And I wanted him to know that, when I was in the Marine Corps, I'd shake somebody's hand, say, "Hi, I'm Wade Covington, Master Sergeant Marines." And they would believe anything I said.
Right.
I'd tell them I saw aliens yesterday and they go, "What color?"
Yeah. Right.
But then I got into real estate and I came home one day. I told my wife, this is the hardest thing for me to get over is people not trusting me because all I want to do is help them. And it's very, very tough to get over.
Wow.
So,
but that does it. When I tell them that, they go, okay, right. I get it.
So let's talk about the process. And we're talking about the process of sales. And this relates to real estate, obviously, but it probably relates to other sales too. So I don't come looking, and maybe I'm unusual or maybe I'm like every other buyer. I don't come looking unless I'm going to buy a piece of property. All right. And so I don't think that we've ever approached you and you thought in your head, I wonder if they're going to buy. Yeah, we're going to buy. We just don't know what property yet. Right. Because we can now, and primarily it's Jill. Jill can walk through a property and she'll know in 3 minutes whether she's going to buy the property or not, right? She's got that sense. But what is the typical customer that you're dealing with? Do you feel that you really have to sell them on a piece of real estate, or is it more like this is it?
Okay, so a slight misconception there. Mm-hmm. Selling them on a piece of real estate is probably the first misconception. Mm-hmm. You didn't state it for any other reason. You probably didn't mean it literally, but you and Jill are a specific type of buyer. You're an investor.
Sure.
You're an experienced purchaser of real estate.
Sure.
And so you know what you want, you know what you need to look for, and it's kind of easy for you.
And the more you know about that, the easier our relationship is.
Of course. Yeah.
You can spot it and say, you ought to come look at this. Yeah.
So as a result, when you're looking for a piece of property, it's simple. Here's 3. One of them works, one of them works.
Sure.
If none of them work, we'll see you when we see you.
Sure.
Now, regarding different types of buyers, you have first-time home buyers, you've got second-time home buyers, and all of these different buyers and investors, obviously, and all of these types of buyers have different approaches to the purchase. Like first-time home buyers, for example, it's sometimes hard for them to get started because it's so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. The thought of buying a house and not knowing anything about it. I mean, really, I can't tell you how many times I talk to first-time home buyers and they just say, I just don't even know where to start. And so that's where I come in and I start talking about, well, I have an organized process for my buyers. There's a right way to buy a house and a wrong way to buy a house. The wrong way, driving around looking at signs before you found out from a lender how much you can spend.
Right. And the right way is immediately.
Yes. There you go.
Within the next week. No.
That's one of the toughest things, and they just don't know. So I jump in there when they call me off a sign, and I'll go show them the house, first time home buyers, and they're like, we really want to buy a house, but they haven't even talked to a lender. They don't know what their credit score is. So
how do you do that? I mean, we talked about vetting at the beginning of the podcast. I mean, you only have so many hours in the day, right? And I assume people run you ragged looking at houses. And I know we felt bad about it on some days. It's like, Wade's got to go back home, right? Because we just keep on looking at houses. But that's got to be a challenge. How do you vet people so that you're not wasting your time?
It's kind of goofy, and you're not going to know what I'm talking about. Right. But Family Guy, the show Family Guy? Okay. Well, every once in a while, Spider-Man will show up on Family Guy. Somebody will be falling off a building, and he'll catch him, and he'll say, everybody gets one. And that's how I am with buyers. They'll call me from a property. I want to see it. And I tell Jessica, everybody gets one. I drive out there, have a conversation. If they're a first-time home buyer, I have to organize a process for you. If you don't need me, what am I doing here? Right. So I explained to them, the right way, we need to contact a lender. I'm going to have them call you. Now we're talking about the people I know in my business circles.
That's exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Yes. You're asking them to go through these steps. And if they're willing, and if they do go through the steps, then you go, okay, I may have something here.
Sure, but you have to use partners in business.
Yeah, and if they qualify for a $250,000 house and they're looking at $500,000 houses, you're wasting time. Right. So narrow that gap.
Yeah. So a lot of real estate professionals, especially new ones, this is one of their biggest challenges is getting past this qualification process. Mm-hmm. Because people don't want to do the work. The buyers just don't want to, they want to look at houses and they don't understand how important it is. So that's kind of what I explained to them. I say, look, I'm not into breaking hearts, and we're standing in a $225,000 house. And if I go show you 3 more and you fall in love with one of them, and then we find out you qualify for $180,000, I just broke your heart, broke kids' hearts. There's no reason to waste our time with that. And that makes sense to them. Yeah. And now they understand.
And now you've built another layer of trust.
Exactly. So human equity. Yeah. So the second step is that if, certain number of odds that if I tell them to call a lender, they're not going to call them. They'll call the next real estate agent and go look at another house. I mean, I'm not saying that they all do, but it tends to happen. You have to have good partners. You have to have good partners in your business. You have to have good partners in your business. Mm-hmm. So I have lenders, not just one, I have several for several different buyers. Mm-hmm. And I call them and say, will you please call my client? Mm-hmm. Me personally, my clients don't go online. They don't fill out paper. I want my lender to call them directly, talk with them, qualify them now so we can get to business. Mm-hmm. And because I send that business to those lenders, they do it. And I think that circle, that handoff and handoff and handoff, it's just good business.
Mm-hmm. It is. Mm-hmm.
And it makes a difference to the consumer for sure, especially in the experience of a first time home buyer who thinks, oh, this is so overwhelming. It's going to be so hard. Lender calls me and goes, okay, you can, $200,000 and this is what your closing costs are going to be, and get a hold of Wade and start looking at houses. And now they're just blown away that it was that easy.
Yeah. And I can't even imagine people thinking buying real estate is difficult, because it's like, we just take the pen. It's like,
and you have a relationship,
right?
Your lender, you've got a relationship, and it makes it much easier. You have a relationship in real estate, real estate professional, and that makes all the difference for you, because it is easy. You call up Wade, you say, hey, we're wanting to buy this, and look at these, and we go do it, and you say, hey, I want it, and we take care of everything. And
so tell us about the more, we spend time at the lake, and everywhere, this is everywhere, the more real estate agents seem to be out there, okay? And man, do you guys like your billboards. Good Lord. And the other thing I'm going to say about this business is, when did every female real estate agent decide that she needs to be sexy on her billboard? It's like some of these billboards, I'm going, what the hell is they advertising for?
I have to do a cost analysis on advertising, and the billboard thing.
Is it an ego thing or what? I mean, these billboards are not cheap. I've priced these billboards along expensive. Business 54, and $900 and $950 a month on a discounted basis is a good deal these days for those billboards.
And good for them; they can afford that. I mean, that's great. I hope it's doing something for them.
Some of them have like 50 billboards if you drive around the lake.
I drove down Bagnell Dam the other day. There were 3 billboards within 40 feet.
Yeah,
of real estate agents.
Yeah, it's amazing. But the competition in general, I always say that you need to ask yourself, the 3 questions. The 3 questions of business: are people buying what I'm selling? Are they buying in sufficient quantities in my market area? And am I better than the competition? Because you have to be. You have to be better. At least you have to believe that you're better than the competition in order to grab that market share. But it's a competitive environment in real estate.
Yes, and it is, the market share is the toughest thing. Mm-hmm. How do you get that market share? You can't just walk up and down the street and say, "Hey, I'm a great real estate professional."
Sure.
There is a process in getting those leads, and then you have to be good enough to convert them and convince those consumers that you are the person that they need to use.
Right.
Eric and Jill, they've used several real estate professionals, and every time I meet somebody, I give them one, I make my case. This is why you should use me.
Right.
And then that case has to be good enough in a manner that they say, "Wow, I'm going to call him back."
Right. Sure.
And I love it when that happens because now I've established a relationship. It's not about me trying to sell you this particular home, because if this doesn't work for you, this home doesn't work for you, I don't want you to buy this home.
Right.
Sure.
Right. I don't want you to try and invest in a home that's defective when it comes to a rental or something like that. So I want to find a place that's working for your needs and your financial needs. So,
right. It just seems to me, because I know that Jill's talked about, it's like, maybe I'll get my real estate agent's license. And it's like, I don't think sometimes people realize how many hours you got to put in to do this job. It's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it is. So, we were talking about Lowe's being that dynamic environment with the problem solving. And that's why real estate just seems to match up in my personality so well, because I have a severe case of ADHD, mm-hmm. and the military it was good for, management at Lowe's it was good for, and real estate it's good for, because you're running around all over the place getting phone calls and you are multitasking all the time.
Yeah. Sure.
But you're also typically not very organized if you're that personality. So in comes Jessica, my wife. So she was a massage therapist, and my first year I'd just taken off already. I was working like 7 contracts at a time, which I never thought would ever happen.
Crazy.
And I was having a hard time managing that.
Sure.
So I went to her and said, "I need help. What do you think about quitting and getting your license and then helping me with my administration?" So, and she's super smart, super mm-hmm. organized. She got her license in like 3 weeks, she aced the test, and
crazy.
It was just crazy. But so, and that's what she does, is she takes care of all my paperwork and my calendar.
The backside, the back office.
She doesn't show listings. She doesn't deal with any of that stuff. Eric knows how awesome she is. I mean, she gets my signatures for me and types up all the forms. Of course, I review them before they go to the clients. So to kind of address what you were saying, the hours of work. So while I'm out constantly, driving around like I am today, putting signs in the yard and engaging with people, and I'm on the phone from here to wherever I'm going.
Sure.
She's at home and she's on her computer and fielding all that administration.
Highest and best use, right?
So, highest and best use.
Correct.
Yeah, she fits there. I fit here.
Yep, sure. Absolutely.
She's not, she doesn't have that drive or communication to help people buy a house.
Sure.
So, for example, we went to Florida about 10 days ago. Mm-hmm. We left the house and immediately my phone was ringing before I got out of the driveway. Mm-hmm. I'm sending you an offer on one of your listings. So now we're in the car. We're going to be in the car for 8 hours.
Sure.
So Jessica gets her laptop out.
Hotspots.
Yeah.
All the way for 8 hours, all the way to Jasper, Alabama. She sat in the passenger side.
That ain't easy in Alabama to find a hotspot.
So she's typing up offers and she's fielding this stuff, and I'm talking. And so we're working from the car. I mean, every morning of our vacation up until around noon, we were working, so
that's the way it is.
And that's usually how it is as an entrepreneur. But a lot of people don't see that part of it.
Sure.
I always say, I always see the end result and judge off that or make an assumption. And there you go. You guys are on the way to vacation and you're still hustling and grinding. Right. I love it.
And I love that my clients are concerned about my time, but like Eric said, like, hey, we're taking up a lot of his time. But when Eric and Jill call me, one of the secrets is keeping a calendar and making sure that you if you're showing houses on Monday morning, that you give your clients all the time they need to see those houses.
Sure.
They are my primary focus right now.
Yep.
And so when they turn around, I'm sorry, you're taking up so much of your time. You are you are all I am focused on this morning. So if you keep a calendar, it's never a problem. I mean, cut it close every once in a while, but
sure.
That ADHD thing, I can work with that.
Yeah. And I think, and that's why the real estate works, because it keeps your mind busy. And, you're seeing a different environment every day, a different problem, different client, a different customer. And that's what's good for that.
Exactly.
So tell us about the challenges of the prices, right? I mean, the real estate prices, and it's not just at the lake, it's everywhere. I hear about every market that the real estate values have gone through the roof. And it just seems like an odd time that people are in a frenzy to buy real estate, right? It's like, look, I took a lot of economics courses back at the University of Arizona. Not one economist, not one economic professor said, well, under this theory, the government just continues to print money, okay, like there's no tomorrow, all right? And we shut down the world economy for a year, and real estate skyrockets. It's like, no, that's probably not good economic theory. Although that's what we're faced with. It's amazing.
Yeah, and the markets are so unique right now. Right. I mean, small town America, people aren't going to move. They don't need to move. They're not going to buy that 4-bedroom right now if that they typically would. But at the lake, people need a second home. The economy's burning up. And there's a lot of people in certain industries that are doing very, very well. Yeah. So they want that lake house. They don't care what they have to pay to get it. So they'll pay cash, waive appraisals. I mean, the whole thing. And
it's crazy.
Eventually, obviously, I think I've already seen it in some of the areas, because I sell, I assist clients all the way over in Waynesville by the Ford area. So that's another unique market.
Yep. Sure.
The demand is the demand. You have military members coming in. They need a house. Yeah. There's no way around that. So, that's much different than small town America, where Aunt Joan is going to buy a house, over on 4th Street.
Sure.
But the lake, these second homes, if you're wanting a bigger lake home right now, it's just not the time to move, because you're going to sell yours, but you're going to have a hard time finding another one.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we've obviously we're not done buying, but we're done buying right now, because we know we've got a formula on what we can pay for a house, because Jill can tell me within probably 5% how much we're going to make on a gross basis. Now, that's only changing because the lake has exploded. Typically, we would measure the formula or use a formula of 80 paid nights. Well, last year was 120 paid nights. This year, it's going to be about 140 to 150 paid nights. I mean, the lake, there seems to be no stopping it, but certainly even at the lake, there's some cyclical nature to its economy, I would think.
Yeah, of course. And if you have buying power, then you're good.
Sure.
It's the clients that even 20% conventional just isn't walking the walk right now.
Yeah.
Unless you have a really good real estate professional that can write up the contract in a way that is attractive enough to get that bought. But I think that you're right. I mean, economics always works. I mean, it's going to happen. And the inventory is going to end up going up because so many buyers are like, you know what, I'm not going to buy right now. And they sit back, and that's 2/3 of the buyers. Sure. So that allows the inventory to catch up a little bit, and eventually it'll all balance out.
Right.
I don't know how long that'll take, but I've already seen a little bit of that in certain markets.
Sure,
of course.
Yeah. So, I'm going to ask you the unfair question. We ask this of every guest, and I always tell guests not to prepare because I really want to know what comes to mind immediately.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate that.
Right, exactly. So we always ask our guests, if you were advising entrepreneurs, and by the way, this is an excellent discussion. One of the things that I didn't want to do with Wade is I didn't want to make it about the lake real estate, right? Because our listeners are all over the place, and we talk business, right? And we talk sales, and that's what made this podcast at least memorable for me. But if you were to tell an entrepreneur or a wannabe entrepreneur a couple of lessons, whether it's, don't be afraid to take a risk or what have you, what would those lessons be? What are those things that you think are you still refer back to those lessons even today when you know that you can sell real estate, you're comfortable in it? What are some of those things that you tell someone?
Well, so first of all, everybody has certain characteristics that add into that are probably not going to change. So when you talk to 3 different people, they have different communication styles and the way they interact with people and how genuine they are. Those characteristics typically aren't going to change. So I think that's a certain percentage of that success because that's how you come across to consumers, your peers, and, the larger consumer basis. But some of the things I did, and there are so many things I did that I think were good calls. One of them was I treated my business, which I don't think a lot of real estate agents do this, especially when they start out, like a storefront. So everything I spent to get to be a real estate agent, I charged myself. I was in the red.
Sure.
And then as I worked and sold houses and I got in the black, then I also had 20% going to a business account. I had my taxes to the side because I was an independent contractor. And then I paid myself a certain amount, just like a storefront would.
Interesting.
Or a small business. And then my business account, this is where I think I really made a good call. My business account would grow to, I don't know, $1,400. So then one day I said, well, I need to do something. I need to market myself. I need some sort of brand.
Okay.
So I took that money and I bought pens. And even my dad, he was like, "You're going to buy pens?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to hand out pens." He's like, "Well, what's that all about?" And they were real cheap, like 18 cents a pen.
Right.
But it ended up becoming my brand. And, I brought a couple of them today. And now, I walk in gas stations around the lake and in Waynesville, and they're asking me if I have my pens with me. They love them, So that has kind of become my brand.
I give Wade grief about these pens. By the way, our last guest brought a bottle of scotch, just so you know, for your next appearance.
Got it. Well, the pen, it'll bring you years of joy.
That's right.
All right. So
but I think having a brand is important.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree with you 100%.
That separates you from the pack.
Of course. Absolutely.
Especially in a crowded space.
Well, it's more about niche too, right? It's like, that's the guy who, right? I mean, I'm the guy. Everybody who calls me, the referral sources, asks me if it's after 4 o'clock. It's like, hey, you drinking a scotch, right? Right. And I think that my scotch drinking, even though it's probably unacceptable on certain levels, is a bit more folklore than it is anything else, right? Right. The scotch and the cigars and the motorcycles, I do all those things, but it's not like I spend all day doing those things. Yeah. But if they know you for something,
you're
it's
top
critical.
Of mind, like Cassandra said.
Absolutely
always
critical.
Be top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And along with that, I can tell you several real estate agents have come up to me and say, "Hey, I ordered some pens."
Yeah,
and that's fine, but find your own brand.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
This worked for me because of the way that I use it.
Right.
There was a guy at the national conference for Century 21 in Orlando, and he walked around with a pitchfork. And he wore crazy shoes. He was a Century 21 agent. And I know that sounds wild, but that's what he was known for.
Red Boswell of IFPG always wears red shoes, red tennis shoes.
Yep. So that was his brand, and people would go on Facebook and they see all these shoes that he buys, and they just relate to it. So just because this happened to work for me to some degree doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because you're probably not going to employ it the way I employ it, and I'm not going to tell anybody how I do that. But so that's one thing. I think that you need to find out what is attractive to you that would be attractive to other people.
Yep.
Yep. These days, you've got to stand out.
Yep.
The other thing is creating opportunities and being curious. Those are two things that are kind of synonymous with each other that I have found that most successful people do. And what it means is not taking advantage of opportunities, because that's easy. You know, you make a decision because something came at you. I mean, seeing something and turning it into an opportunity.
Yep.
It's much different, right?
Yeah.
So are you, and being curious is the same way, but are you driving around as if you're in sales, especially, and let's say you sell some sort of automotive material or something for a corporate company. Are you driving around and identifying small mechanic shops and pulling in and trying to engage with those people? I mean, that is both creating an opportunity and also, you know, trying to expand your brand
and
or
hustle.
your product.
Curious. Yeah.
It's hustle. Yeah.
Right.
Now, being curious is becoming an expert in your industry. And if you're an expert in the industry, it will come across to your clientele or your customer base, consumers. They will know when they're talking to you, and you know, words coming out of your mouth, they're going to know that you know what you're talking about. So that means that in real estate, for example, you know, I've run across professionals that have said something to me about a contract, and you know, that's not how it works. If you read page 2, I never noticed that. So they never really read all the legalese in that contract, but you have to be an expert in that because you got to protect your clientele.
Yeah.
And that is being curious. Attorneys should be reading periodicals about legal stuff, right? I mean, that's the industry. Doctors should be reading periodicals about, you know, the medical community.
Sure.
And if you're in real estate, you should know what's going on with real estate.
Yeah.
So be curious. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And for me, in addition to the scotch and the motorcycles, et cetera, it helps being really, really, really good looking.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So, all right, Ricky.
You say I'm good looking? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm talking about that's my pitch.